Well, good morning, folks. This is Minister Ed. Um, I'm going to do the call to worship this morning. Please bow your heads. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Matthew 11, chapter 11, verses 28 through 30. Amen. Today's sermon is sort of a continuation from last week's sermon on Libet's study. It will clarify a little bit on the study that I was talking about. Uh, this discussion is, do we have free will? As human beings, we have um, we have an urge to ask for reasons why certain things happen. Some people believe that there is a higher being which decides our fate, and these people are people of different denominations: Christians, Jews, Muslims, um, etc., etc. There's different faiths out there. I'm sure different regions of the world that are cut off that have their own belief systems. Um, while others think that we live in a world determined by some amount of cosmic karma. Karma is basically you get back what you do to others. Um, now, while definitive answers evade us, science tries to offer us clues as to what actually determines how our lives pan out. This is where we actually get into Libet's study. Now, I wanted to introduce this study over a 2 week period because Libet's study is kind of, well, it's dated, but it talks about something that contradicts faith, and it just doesn't make, well, I'll let y'all make up your own minds about this because I have my own views as a pastor, minister, reverend, whatever you want to call me. We're a universal church. Um, this is considered one of the most important studies in the neuroscience community. It was conducted by a Benjamin Libet to determine that our brain waves might actually contain the answers to this question. His study had participants wear electrodes on their scalp, which is called shortened called the EEG or electroencephalogram, to track their brain wave patterns while performing a simple exercise. He instructed these people to raise their right or left index fingers while allowing the urge to move their fingers can come about on its own. In other words, they should not predetermine or think about the act before they move their fingers. They should do so at random. Once the act was complete, the scientists made a note of exactly what time the finger was moved. On the neurological side of things, the electrodes attached to the patient's scalp constantly made note of the brain's activity. Perhaps the most important aspect of this experiment was that to the millisecond, excuse me, that I'm sorry, experiment was that Labette had participants make note using a provided stopwatch, which can track down to the millisecond exactly when they made the decision to move. Now, here's a question for you. If they were to raise one finger on one hand randomly and not think about it, how were they supposed to hold this stopwatch and click it randomly or raising the finger randomly? I mean, it kind of contradicts itself scientifically. Now, unless there was somebody in the room clicking the stopwatch. The implications of this, by analyzing these three vital parts, the finger movement, the electrodes, and the decision-making time, Labette was able to uncover an astonishing fact. Participants' brain activity showed that their brain actually made the decision to move their finger more than 400 milliseconds. 400 milliseconds, that's like quicker than a blink of an eye. Before they said noted, excuse me, before they said noted on the clock that the decision was made, and more than 600 milliseconds before they physically moved their finger. What does this mean? So what does this mean in terms of free will? Well, from it depends on how you interpret it. If you're if our brains are able to determine our movements before we are even conscious of them, does that mean that our decisions are really our own? Human brains can act independently of our body. What does it mean to exercise free will? Well, it comes to determining our free will. When it comes to determining our free will, an ability to own when it comes to determining our free will and ability to own decisions, Libet's findings certainly complicates things. So what do you think? Can we call it having free will if a sense of decisions are made before we are conscious of them? Or remember, these are questions offered that are meant to make you think. This section does not mean that it makes it so. Rely on your understanding of this sermon and decide if you have free will. I believe we have free will. I believe the vet study suggests something that tries to discredit Christians. Let me give you something else to think about. Free will in the Bible. The biblical grounds for free will lies in a full in the full in the fall and the sin by Adam and Eve that occurred into their willfully chosen disobedience to God. We also have the following to think about. 1. Circumstantial freedom is freedom from coercion or restraint that prevents acting as one wills. In the Bible, circumstantial freedom was given to the Israelites in Exodus from slavery in Egypt, meaning they decided to stop being slaves. They decided to move away from the people, Egyptian rulers, and stop working for them, to go to the desert, trust in Moses to lead them to the promised land. But yet, when Moses went to the mount, they became increasingly disobedient to the Lord and spent 40 years roaming the desert. Because they had free will, they worshiped false idols. And all of this stuff in Exodus happened. Exodus is a good book to look at to gain an understanding of a biblical view of free will when it comes to Egypt and what the Israelites did when it came to exercising free will. I would suggest starting to look there to as Christians seeing what our free will is. It couldn't hurt. Next is natural freedom, aka also known as volitional freedom, is freedom to determine one's own decisions or plans. Natural freedom is inherent to all people in all circumstances and without regard to any state of mind or character which they may or may not acquire in the course of their lives. The Bible, paralleling Adler, views all humanity as naturally possessing the free choice of will. If free will is taken to mean unconstrained, involuntary choice, the Bible assumes that all people, unre- unregenerated, unregenerate and regenerate possesses it. For example, free will is taught in Matthew 20, chapter 23, verse 37. Jerusalem, you who have killed the prophets and stoned those sent to you, how often I have longed to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, and you were not willing. Then there's Revelations chapter 22, verse 17. The Spirit and the bride say, come, and let the one who hears say, come. Let the one who is thirsty come, and let the one who wishes take the free gift of the water of life. Then we come to acquired freedom. Acquired freedom is freedom to live as one ought to live, a freedom that it requires a transformation whereby a person acquires a righteous, holy, healthy state of mind or character. This means that there isn't anything holding us back, that we are allowed to. There's no predetermined um, course of action set inside of our heads to tell us what to do. There is a free sense of right and wrong, a sense of God, which is holy, and what is evil. We have that chance of choosing what is right, what is righteousness, and what is evil. It is up to each person to make that choice. And as a minister or a reverend or a shepherd, we try to lead you to what is righteous, but it's up to each person to make that choice. We believe, reverends, ministers, reverends, that we have free will, that it's not predetermined, that choice isn't taken away from us. That in Libet's study, it's what he did, what he discovered was how long it took for that signal, for the way the finger moved, was the reaction time for that finger, for the nerves to travel to the brain. Now imagine stubbing your toe. you know it's going to end up hurting. Then the pain hits. It takes time, though not that long when you stub your toe, for the pain to hit. Same thing for moving your finger. It takes time for that the reflex to hit your brain. So does this mean that Lebet's study is accurate? Maybe, but maybe not. So what I'm telling you now is an alternative to Lebet's study. The Bible testifies to a need for acquired freedom because no one is free for obedience and faith till he is freed from sin's dominion. People possess natural freedom, but their voluntary choices serve sin until they acquire freedom from sin's dominion. The New Bible's the New Bible Dictionary denotes this acquired freedom from obedience and faith as free will. In theological sense, therefore, in biblical thinking, an acquired freedom from being enslaved to sin is needed to live up to Jesus's commandments to love God and love thy neighbor. Jesus told his hearers that they needed to be made free indeed. John chapter 8 verse 36. Free indeed, Antios, means truly free or really free, as it is in some translations. Being made free indeed means freedom from bondage to sin. This acquired freedom is freedom to serve the Lord, being free from being slaves to sin and endowing us with the freedom to choose to be righteous. Now that we have something to think about, for views against and for freedoms of free will and against free will, I hope this gives some thought-provoking um, thinking this Sunday. I honestly, as a minister, think that we have free will, that nothing is predetermined for us. For me, there is a higher being. There is a Savior. And and in time, everyone that allows themselves to be open to the experience, to be saved, will find that free will is out there. Let's close with the benediction today. So I'm going to ask you here in a second to bow your heads. Please bow your heads. Lord, what a change within us one short hour spent in thy presence will avail to make us spent in thy presence will avail to make what heavy burdens from our bosom take, what parched grounds refresh as with a shower. We kneel, and all around us seem to lower. We rise, and all the distant and near stands forth in sunny outline brave and clear. We kneel, how weak, we rise, how full of power. Richard C. Trench. Amen. With that, I'd like to close out our sermon for today. God bless. I wish you the best over the next week. May God watch over you. May He bless you. May He keep you close and under His loving arms. Remember, you can reach me by leaving comments, and I'll be glad to reach back to you as quick as I can. In His loving name, I'll see you next week.